The Connection Show. Inspiring. Hope. Health. Healing. Sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our page. Share it. Subscribe to it now and click the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming shows.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing, sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today from Norway is Steve Eriksen. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you so much, Jill, for having me here on The Connection Show.
We love connecting people from around the globe. And I'd love the audience to know just a little bit about you, just a snapshot. Steve is helping leaders be connected to their audience. After being involved in live and virtual events for over 6 years and helping clients be more visible, he realized the tech challenges leaders, experts, and coaches experience when they want to be on virtual stages and lead from the front. Steve was an automation nerd, and he's created a platform that's called EventRaptor, which is proprietary, and we're going to learn a little bit more about him. So great to meet you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, Steve, on the Connection Show, we do things a little bit different than some other podcasts that go right into who are you and what do you do and all that stuff. So, on the Connection Show, we really believe that connecting someone to their story, connecting the dots to their story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we bring that forward into how that connection transformed you into the amazing man that you are today. So if you are willing to share your story, what it does for the audience, Steve, is when the audience is able to hear your story and look for the similarities of your story in their lives, that's where true transformation begins. So, little Steve, let's start there with little Steve, where you grew up and what your childhood was like, and just bumps in the road that you've experienced through your life.
That's a very good question. So I grew up in, I can call it Little Norway, in the very remote areas of Norway with small villages. So the place where I have my real first memories from were around about 1,000 people. And my father had a small shop in that area. So when you were going to have your dinner, you came into my father's shop, you bought your dinner and took it home. And well, you're not prepared food, but you bought the ingredients and things in the shop. And I would say the first major road bump in my life was that we had a gas pump outside of that shop. And then the gas companies decided to remove all those individual gas pumps that were just attached to a shop like my dad's, and focus on gas stations instead. And the nearest gas station was 15 minutes drive away, and right next to it was a supermarket. And my father couldn't compete with the prices. He couldn't compete with the selection. So after a few months, he went bankrupt. And so I was 7 years old. So really from I was 7 to 17, because in Norway, you stay in bankruptcy for 10 years. You know, I grew up from 7 to 17, knowing that my father was bankrupt and he had problems getting out of that situation. Today, I know that it's because of the lack of knowledge that he had to him at the time, and the lack of being able to go and find that knowledge and get the input from, let's call it the world, in terms of what he was doing that we can do today with the internet. So it was more his limitations that stopped him getting out of it, but it was challenging back then. So I grew up with a passion for small businesses, where I was thinking big businesses are crushing small businesses. I have a passion to make small businesses succeed. So I've always come from that aspect of like working with solopreneurs, being a solopreneur myself, and wanting to help them grow into bigger businesses.
Mm.
So that's translated in many different ways. I had a business in 1996. I was actually studying in the UK and then stayed in the UK for a while afterwards. I lived there for 21 years. And created my own business, trying to help individuals, trying to help the smaller businesses. I had an MBA, and today I realized that having an MBA just teaches you to be a good corporate employee. It doesn't teach you to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't teach you the skills that you need.
It teaches you have a piece of paper, and so you can do whatever you want with it, but it's not what's going to make you successful.
Exactly.
I'd love to pause just a moment before we go more in depth of career. So I always I'm one of those podcast show hosts that I love to go deeper if you're willing. So let's take you back to that 7 to 17 year age and Dad going bankrupt. So share with me more authentically, what was that like for you emotionally, and what was transpiring in your home once Dad had that lost with him and Mom, and if you have siblings, what kind of pain did that bring into the family structure, and did any other things occur within that time frame in the family then?
That's a very good question, and the truthful answer is I don't remember anything in particular. Norway is a welfare state, and we were never in a position where we had to be out on the street or anything like that. I do remember spending a little bit of time with my grandparents. We stayed there for a period of time. I don't even remember whether that was 1 month or 1 year. And then we rented our own house again, and it was quite a nice house, and everything was like normal. It was just the fact that I do remember my father not being able to get any work for a while and not having a lot of money. But, we still went on what I would call fabulous summer vacations. I remember one particular time, my father was a very handy person, and he took a beat up Volkswagen bus, converted it in so it had a kitchen in it and different things that we could go camping. And we went on fabulous camping trips down to Denmark and Germany. So, and that family unity we had over that time was just amazing. And I have really a lot of good memories. I don't have any bad memories from that situation.
So dad didn't fall into a depression or anything like that. Okay. Because a lot of times, especially, and I'm not stereotyping, but especially in men, when they lose their livelihood and what they know, depression can set in, and sometimes you don't even see it. It can manifest in being more, you pull in and become more recluse or quiet or things of that nature. So I wondered if Dad went through some of that, and then sometimes that spirals into the family structure. So within your family, I happen to be, Steve, a Christian. And so, I sometimes bring that spirituality into my show. And so in the Bible, they talk about how we will, all of us, it's if you believe in God. If you don't, you probably don't believe this, but there'll be 4 generations of curses or sins. So many times when I interview people, you'll see progression of something like, I'll throw some things up, like busyness, perfectionism, workaholism, not good enough, abandonment, depression, anxiety, things of that nature that are passed on from yourself, from your great grandfather, mother, to the grandparents, to the parents, to you. Do you recall in your family, because none of us get through life, I don't care how great your childhood was, none of us get through life without any burdens. So do you recall any burdens generationally that you saw within the family structure?
Not burdens as such. My granddad was a little bit of a perfectionist, but it never had a huge impact on me or as such. So there's nothing. So I don't want to. It's one of those. I didn't have a bad childhood in any shape or form. I don't remember any traumas or big emotional difficulties that we went through in any shape or form like that. Of course, as a family, we always have our own trials and tribulations and things like that, but nothing untoward. So there's nothing that I've carried with me as such. The only thing I would say that really carried with me is a very strong work ethic. I believe that if I start a job, I should complete the job, but here's the funny thing: it's more when I do it for other people than when I do it for myself. So if I start it for myself, I might not complete it. But if I start it for other people, then I do my very best to complete it and do it very conscientiously, which I think is a good quality to have. So that work ethic is probably the strongest negative that I have in my adult life. Because it does mean that I make some choices sometimes, which is to get some work done rather than actually maybe taking time out to relax, for instance.
So maybe the burden of busyness that sets in at times where, because, there's a definition, Steve, that I love and I've embraced over the years of codependency is when we allow people, places, or things to become more important than ourselves, that sometimes it causes a sense of identity loss. And so it's easy to understand people like, if people have been codependent of another person and they become a doormat or they become more controlling or authoritarian. But things, I think, have to do with like if church or your job becomes so important that sometimes you push the other things aside and then yourself too. There's an identity shift. And I kind of relate that to flying on an airplane where the flight attendant says, if we have an emergency, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then your children. So kind of like that, I look at, and then things in life that we can become codependent of might be things like drugs or alcohol or food, either under eating or overeating, or sex or shopping or gambling or spending. So things sometimes get in the way of our self-worth and our identity. So kind of that's what I was leading to. So with that, it sounds like within your family, maybe a little bit more on that the places like work becoming more important at times in your life. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely fair to say, absolutely.
Yeah, because I don't, unless we've died and we're not breathing, burdens come into our lives. I mean, it doesn't mean we have to stay there, because my whole theme is moving from victim to victory and not staying stuck in that mindset, but shifting that mind shift and then doing checks and balances in life, I think is so important. So shifting then from you being in the UK and like you said, getting that MBA. Let's go back to that story because I'd really love to know more. And then where the wife came and if you have kids, where they came into play, if any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I knew very quickly, I did a degree in electronics, and I knew fairly quickly that I wasn't really the type to sit in an electronics laboratory and designing electronic circuits. And I wanted to do much more business. So I completed my undergraduate degree, went on straight on to do a 2-year MBA, went out in corporate life, actually worked for the European headquarters of Toshiba for about 2 years. And then I started my business. But where my wife came into play, so this was 1992 when I finished my course. Before I started work, I went on to do a short-term project. It was only supposed to be 4 weeks with a company. I got introduced to everybody when I turned up at Monday morning at 9 a.m. And then suddenly this girl walks in at 10 a.m. And I'm going, why haven't I been introduced to her? So here's what happened. I said that on the Monday morning. The Tuesday afternoon, I spoke to her by the photocopier. Wednesday, she very kindly gave me to lift to the supermarket so I could buy some food because I had I rented a room in a house and I had to make my own food. Thursday, I borrowed my boss's car and took her out for a date. And on Friday, I went home to her for a coffee, and then I sort of never left. And we got married. We got married 5 months later, and in fact, in a week, we're celebrating 29-year anniversary.
What a great love story. I love those. I love love stories. That's beautiful, Steve. Well, it's kind of funny, the photocopier in Toshiba, because I worked for 15 years in technology, and my first technology job was with Toshiba. With Toshiba. and selling the first multifunctional copiers that hit the streets. So the photocopier and the Toshiba I can relate to. Oh God. So then how soon did the children come after that? Love that love story.
That's a very good question. And that was around 2 years later, I think. Yes, 2 years later.
And how many
So
kids do you have? One or
we
two?
have two kids now. We have a boy who's now 26 and a girl who's 22, I think.
And your
Yes.
son works with you,
Yes.
does he not?
He does work with me. He's the chief operating officer of the business. And my wife works with me as well. She is our brand ambassador, master network connector, and really does a lot of the connection with people before they become customers, and getting really like getting leads, getting contact, getting a feeling for everything that we are doing. And she's also starting to lead our networking meetings. We're starting a networking group, and she's the leader of that.
So you like each other a little bit, that you can live together, work together, and still go home and have something else to talk about.
Yes. We have a startup business. I don't know what else there is to talk about at the moment.
I know. I can imagine what the conversations are at home. It's like, how, and that is a good question. How do you recircuit your brains when you get off of work, and when you power off the computers and sit down? Do conversations continuously come back to work, or do you feel like you can talk about other things?
So we do have some ground rules, and that is we often have breakfast together, because part of the challenge is Jenny does a lot with the UK, so she starts earlier than me. I have meetings with California, so I often stop working later than her. So we have this hard rule that if we're spending time together at breakfast, we don't speak business. We go out for a meal from time to time, and again, we avoid business as much as possible. We find that we always seem to be dropping into it, and then we're like, oh no, we're not supposed to talk about business, let's change the topic, kind of thing. So it's about being strict with that. But when your life revolves around that one thing right now, then that's what we talk about.
Yeah, it's hard to shift. I know that it's difficult to make that shift and stuff. So, well, tell us a little bit more then. So you did this business, and of course you met Jenny, and then what transpired to lead you to where you are now with Jenny in this wonderful company called EventRaptor?
Right. So what I did was, I have always worked in the tech space. I started with computers actually in 1977 when I was 10 years old. And I sold my first program when I was 16 years old. But I've always been very interested in business. I've always been very interested in, well, actually, I say always, but I should say, so I've had my own business. It was a tech business. It was an internet service provider from 1996 to around 98, 99. And I call it my failure to succeed. I didn't fail in business. I didn't go bankrupt, but I never became a multimillionaire or anything like that. And when I sold my business, I sold it for 5 figures. So I came at a point in 1999, 2000, where I said to myself, why did I fail to succeed? I got an MBA, I got all this tech knowledge. I had a successful company. We're making more than $500,000 a year, and I still only got like 5 figures when I sold the company. Not profit, revenue of 500,000 a year. And I went down to the basics and said, I used my business school knowledge. So where did it go wrong? And I discovered this wonderful world called direct response marketing. And it turned out that everything I'd been taught about marketing was wrong. Everything. Mm-hmm. So I really went back to scratch, and I started studying what is effective marketing, and went into psychology. How do you make actually people take an action? How do you make people buy? What is it that stops people from buying? I spent a lot of time really working on that. And then from 2004 to 2007, Jenny and I together had what it's called a local directory. So we had a directory of local businesses and distributed that to local households, around 8,000 households. And there was no editorial. It literally was just filled with ads from local businesses. And people loved it because they got an overview of what exists in their local area. And it was really, really successful. But I wrote hundreds of ads in this 3-year period for people. And some of them were like really, really effective at bringing business to that local business, bringing customers to them. And then I
So that had to be very rewarding in the aspect of what happened to your dad, because now
yeah,
here you were able to help manifest within those companies growth.
yes, definitely.
Whereas you saw the pain of your father's business, so here you were utilizing what happened with him now to expand with businesses to grow.
Yes, absolutely. And we had like for instance, a local window cleaner. He was servicing an affluent area, and he was struggling to get clients. He ran 3 ads in our directory, and then he was fully booked out and couldn't do anymore. So that was really good to be able to help. And at the same time, it was an awful lot of hard work. It was like outselling for 2 weeks. It was designing and getting all the artwork together for 1 week, and then we literally for a period of time delivered it ourselves, and that we spent a week doing that, and then the cycle started again. So it was very hard as well. And we then went on to other things, and just skipping a few years, 2014, I started working with a company in the US. Her name is Mary Morrissey, and she does life coach certifications and educates quite a lot of life coaches every single year. And I joined in 2014 when the company was around 25 people. And I was the tech guy who was helping the marketing guy. And over the years, I finished working with Mary in 2020. We were 100 people. I had a team of 7 people below me. I was the chief technology officer. And what we implemented and what I created, because a lot of the systems that I created there was actually my brainchild, coming at this from a business point of view and knowing what the technology can do, and then also knowing what technology can do and saying what's the business application of that. So both sides of the coin. So we created some amazing systems to really reduce the amount of work inside of the business, smooth the path for people to be able to buy, help the sales team increase their sales. And at that time, I was coming to a stage where I really wanted to change what I was doing. I wanted to do more on my own rather than just running a team for Mary. So we agreed a transition period of 3 months where I was working on my own business and still helping Mary out. And I started with client attraction. And my target audience was the small coach, was the coach who may be making 0, maybe making 50, or they could make 100, but didn't understand, how did I get to 100? Can I do it again next year? So really, it was about, and then first of all, for myself to become known in that niche and establish myself. So I created a summit as my first proper marketing activity. And I was 8 weeks into my business when I had my first summit. And it was an amazing success. I had 650 people opting into my mailing list, and we sold quite a few VIP packages from that. But I didn't have a big coaching package to offer back then. I just had a $497 course and like customized things that I would do with you. So then we created a group coaching program, and we created a second summit. The first one we had 27 speakers. The second one we had 37 speakers. But here's the thing. During this time, I realized that my clients were struggling to put together a landing page and connecting something like a PDF that people wanted to that form, and then sending out emails afterwards. And I had to go over the same thing again and again and again with the same people again and again and again, because it was so complex for them. And when I then created my own summit, I realized that there were no good system on the market that could actually help me with creating the summit and managing the speakers around that. So I created my own systems. So after I'd done the second summit with 37 speakers, which, by the way, I spent less than 10 hours on the administration of those 37 speakers, building out all the pages, collecting all the information, sending out all of the emails, took me less than 10 hours. Wow. And afterwards, the speakers were saying, like, this is amazing, the system you put together. Can we use it for our own summits? And it just came a day when we realized that the summit system I'd created was really enabling people to run summits in a very different way to what I've done before, making it so easy. And if we develop this, we could actually bring things like summits and meetings to our audience in a much better way. So we stopped the client attraction and focused on EventRaptor. We started building the system in March 2020. We launched it in June 2020, in March 2021, and we launched it in June 2021. And now we're here in February 22.
Wow. That's amazing. And you know what I love about the transition of your story, Steve, is you had all of that wisdom and knowledge and technology. And then it sounds to me that you were able to see your passion, which was more, in a lot more, in certain ways, more marketing and hands-on connecting with humans versus technology, but you were able to merge the two together so gracefully.
Yeah. And I think one of my strengths is here that for me, technology is an enabler. I always write code with the idea of this code is going to do something either for me or for my audience or for people. So I always think about what is the use of what I'm developing and what I'm creating here. How do we translate the use of that into success, whatever that success looks like? So to give an example, we have a lady who's 70 years old who has problems connecting a form in her mailing system, Active Campaign, to send out a PDF, and she's hosted her first summit. Right? And she did that with virtually no help from me. Because what we're doing is we're always thinking about how can we make this so easy for people that they can do this themselves without any effort.
So help me to help the audience here. So let's help the audience here. So I happen to be a meeting and event planner, so this is interesting to me, obviously. So someone who, and I love this part of the story, Steve, because I know that you've experienced this. So it seems like people come out of the closet and say, I want to do an event. And they have zero idea what planning event is all about. They just go, oh, I'm going to do an event, or I'm going to do a retreat, I'm going to do a workshop. And then they just kind of dive right in, and probably without even having your system or knowledge, 98% of them lose a lot of money right out the door. Would you not agree with that statement?
Oh, totally agree with that, especially if they don't have the technology sorted. So the biggest challenge I see is that people have no understanding typically of why am I doing this? Okay, so when I say that, I'm very, very specific. And this is something I learned very well from Mary. You start with the end in mind. So you never start with the fact that you're going to do a summit. You're starting with the fact that you might be saying, my end goal is that I want to sell more of my high ticket coaching program. Okay, then you go and saying, how can I sell that? Well, one of the ways I can do that is to increase my authority and show up as a leader. Then the question is, how do I do that? Well, that can be running a 5-day challenge, but it can also be a summit. A summit, you have implied authority because the speakers on your stage will give you the authority that you might be missing. This is why I created a summit. But then you still have in mind, what's the aim of the summit? The aim of the summit is make people buy your coaching program, right? So if you just say, I'm going to do a summit, you're lacking the link of what you do after the summit. How do you word everything around your summit to encourage the next step? So if you haven't got a goal in mind, what you'll end up doing is, for instance, it might be a list build where you're just getting a lot of people into the summit, and it might be pre-recorded, you might be doing it live. But if you don't have the strategy behind why you're doing it, then you are not, if you don't know, then your audience is not going to know. So for instance, we're going to create a summit now soon for a client of ours. And they are doing a 3-day event where they're going to be pitching a high-end coaching program, $10,000 or more. Right? And the summit is there specifically to build up their authority, to show their leadership, and to get people into the 3-day event. So now that you know that you're going to use it to get people into a 3-day event, how are you going to do that? Well, you don't want people to come to your 3-day event for free necessarily, right? Because if they pay money, you know that they're more likely to pay later. If they don't pay money, they might not even have a credit card. They might not even be able to pay, right? So you want them to pay something.
And they're more likely not to show up because they'll just say, oh, you know, that event was happening. I didn't pay for it. I got something else more important.
Absolutely. So here's one way you can use a summit for this. You sell a VIP package for the summit, where one of the benefits of the VIP package is to come to your 3-day event. Okay. And then you sell that really hard. When I say really hard, I don't mean like buy, but you do after every single. So first of all, I would recommend you doing the summit live rather than pre-recorded, because that gives you the authority. You're in front of people. And then after each session, you're saying, wasn't that a fantastic session? So many gold nuggets. Make sure you buy the VIP package if you didn't get all of the notes. If you weren't able to write everything down, so you can play this back. And by the way, the VIP package gives you free entry to my 3-day event in 2 weeks. Make sure you mark this in your calendar and come to my 3-day event, because you're going to learn so much more than you're learning here at this event. Right? Now, here's the thing. When you know that you're doing the summit for a 3-day event and you know what you are teaching and the coaching, you can then define what is your ideal client avatar. Who do you want in the room? Who's the perfect candidate for you? Then you want to fill your summit with those people, which means that now you're going out looking for speakers who's got that audience and can help bring those speakers to you. That's how you construct a successful summit, by thinking about all the aspects of why you're doing it, how you're going to use it. If you just say, I'm going to create a summit, then you have much less cohesion to your plan of who's going to be in the room, who's my speakers going to be, what's the topics going to be, what's the theme going to be. If you started with that end in mind, this is much easier to define. You have much more clarity in what you're trying to do. And
this is where I see people getting stuck the most, and not monetizing, and I've made this mistake myself. So that's why you can only see in somebody else what you see in yourself. So if you take one of the things when I used to sell, when I used to sell outside, do outside sales, I'd always in ride-alongs with bosses. The one thing I always loved to do, Steve, is, and most people hate doing this, but I loved it, is get in the car with my boss afterwards and say, Steve, can you tell me on that call, what do you feel I did right and where do I need improvement? And so I look at this, a lot of people do events and then they don't have somebody to go back to and said, what do you feel was successful and what did I need improvement on? So this is the biggest one that I'm seeing many mistakes, including myself. So when you then go to recruit or reach out to the speakers that are going to be on your platform, do you have requirements for that speaker? Like you have to be able to sell 10 tickets or you have to be able to bring in this amount? Because what I saw is I found amazing speakers that sounded like they had great followings and not one of them sold a ticket. They couldn't even bring someone to their own event to hear them. And I was like, wow, you seemed very successful. You seemed like you had a great story, and yet you couldn't even sell a virtual ticket for like $18. You couldn't get an $18 ticket sold. So how do you go about looking for someone, and then what are your requirements for that speaker to bring to the table?
So first of all, the finding speakers is very much about networking. I think you go out and you simply ask anybody anybody that you already know could be a good fit. You go directly to them. Otherwise, turn up at networking meetings saying, here are my requirements. Here's the type of speaker I'm looking for. Who do you know that I should be speaking to? So, and in addition, EventRaptor, we have a speaker directory. We have over 500 speakers listed themselves. So you can go to that directory there to find speakers for your event. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of requirements, I don't necessarily require them that they have to promote. I am looking for value for my people. So I think it's great to have a good mix of speakers who will bring people in, and some speakers who just provide really good value, but may not necessarily be able to put people into the event, but just the content they have is so good. So when I go out and recruit speakers, the first thing that is the most important thing for me is the match between the speaker and the target audience I'm looking for. So I always start off by defining who is going to be in the room. Who do I want to be in the room? Who are all the other speakers going to be focusing on? And then I'm telling the speakers that I'm speaking to, saying, here are the people I have in the room. Here is the information they're looking for. So for instance, we just did a couple of weeks ago, Own Your Stage Summit. So we said, these are speakers who are speaking to sell a service. So they're coaches, experts, consultants. They're at the stage right now where they need to improve the game. They're not successful yet, or if they have success, they know they can do better. and they want to learn better ways of doing things. If you teach that audience, if you have something of value to bring to that audience, if those are the people who are on your list, then we would like you to be able to speak at our summit. Here are the type of topics that we're looking for. And when we are that clear in our communication, that's when we get excellent speakers. So we had Steve Werner talking about how do you create your hero's journey? Because when you are speaking to sell, you want to have a hero's journey, which is, here is how things are. I went for me, and then suddenly I had a huge drop in my results, and I had this challenge, and I overcame the challenge, and now I'm successful. That, in broad strokes, is the hero's journey, and so many of Hollywood films are built on that hero's journey. Literature is built on that. So we really tuned in as human peoples to be rooting for the person and connecting with them through that kind of story. So he was teaching about how do you create that kind of story, and our audience absolutely loved it.
Okay, so pause that for just a moment, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, so I'm tracking 100% to what you're saying, but I want to also go back just a step, because this is what I see. So I see you as highly successful, created this amazing platform. You've got the connections. Okay, so I see that in you, Steve. But the atypical person who wants to begin to do retreats, workshops, summits, and conferences aren't as advanced as you are. So let's take that back now to the person, let's say, okay, who is beginning this process, and they really want, and because I meet these people all the time. Right before COVID hit, I had my whole calendar booked for the whole year, hiring people that hired me to plan their event. And so they had hired me to plan their event. But what I found is not any of them that hired me to plan their event, because I do the negotiations, the budget, I do the registrations, I do all of that for them. But their responsibility was to market their event. And that's where I see people failing, is they start this process of, I want to be an event, I want to do an event, I want to do an event. And then they have zero clue how to market it and get butts in the seats, as they say, tickets sold. And so let's address those people, because most people don't know how to do what you just said. And so you're an expert at that. They don't know how. I mean, they might go, like, I know people that go to 5 million networking groups, have 5 million people they network with, and hundreds and hundreds of people that want to speak. And everyone you talk to in the network groups, I want to speak, I want to speak, I want to speak. And then you get to the time of having the event, and the speakers show up and speak, and it's not a success. It's just not, you don't get enough tickets sold, you don't get enough attendees. So let's talk to the person who is not educated like you are, and they want to get started here, and they don't have, let's say they don't have the luxury to spend a whole year to try to figure it out. Where do you go? How do you get started?
Yeah, so first of all, you get started simply by, for instance, using our directory, where we have speakers listed. Some of the speakers in our directory have 5,000 and 10,000 people on their list, and they're able to do fantastic things for the promotion of your event. So don't discount that for a second. Secondly, it is about connecting people, but it's about the energy and the phraseology that you are using. If you are expecting the people in the room to actually be the speakers, then you're aiming at the wrong audience. You are looking for who do they know who. Okay, so bear that in mind. I hear this a lot in networking. Somebody will say, hey, I'm a coach, I deal with, say, emotional problems. Do you have an emotional problem? I solve this kind of emotional problem. And here's the problem with that, is that you're asking the person in the room, you're assuming they're going to be your customer. And they're not. They really are not. You need to ask them, I am looking for a speaker. I'm looking for a coach who is aiming at teaching speakers how to improve their business. This needs to be a successful coach. Somebody who's already got the following, they have their own high-ticket coaching program, I would love to be in touch with them. Now, the person that you're going to get feedback about is going to be at a much higher level, the kind of person who can put people into your event.
So pause that for a moment. What if this person is just starting out, though, and they don't have a budget to pay speakers yet?
You do not pay speakers anymore.
Okay.
So, right. This is an important thing.
Okay.
So the world has changed. What used to be is that if you wanted to have a named speaker or somebody with a following to come to your stage, you had to pay them. All of that changed with the virtual. Now the name of the game is the speaker will be paid by being allowed to promote something to your audience. And the quid pro quo is that they have to help bring that audience. So if you're ever in a position where speakers are saying, I want you to pay me, just walk away, because there are a ton of speakers who are willing to come to your stage and willing to promote you without you having to pay them. But what they will want is they will want the opportunity to build a mailing list, to give a lead magnet, to give some downloadables, an opportunity for people to opt into their list, or even to have offer a strategy session so people can meet with them one-on-one. And if you can build a following and build an event where you're putting them in front of even 20, but 50 and 100 people, then they will love you for that, and they will come back, and they will come back, and they'll come back.
And so will this philosophy, because I know that I just spoke at an event in Overland Park, Kansas this last weekend with 20 speakers. And so will this philosophy work even for live events now? Because I know a lot of people are doing the virtual, because I did the virtual first, and then I did my own live event. So will this philosophy also work for live events where the speakers have to travel, have to buy airplane tickets, have to go to a hotel? Can you get speakers now to come to your event, for, as I use the word, at their own expenses? You don't pay them. They pay their own hotel, their own airfare, and their own food.
In my opinion, and this is difficult to say because the world has changed so much over the last 2 years, and we haven't really gone back very much to live events yet, certainly no big events. But I can tell you that your ability to get people to turn up for free depends on your ability to put them in front of an audience who's likely to buy their offer.
Okay. So it has to go back to the event planner who has the ability to see the vision of what the audience is going to be. So that sometimes is difficult because, well, this one we just did, Steve, for example, this one we did in Overland Park, Kansas, was called Becoming the Best You Could Be, Overcoming Challenges in 2022. So we all on the stage spoke about how we've worked through issues in our own lives to become the best us that we can be. And then the talks that the audience heard felt like they then too could become the best you. So it was very successful, I think, in the aspect that it was only about 45 guests in the audience, about 25 virtually, a smaller event with 20 speakers. And so the whole room was maybe 60 some people. But the benefit was everyone that was there and afterwards said, wow, that was such a connecting event. So many people felt like they had nuggets unbelievably. But I don't know if any of the speakers monetized on it, but I believe it brought forth the next event, which is going to happen in October. So kind of, and again, and I just did a poll on LinkedIn asking people and more so, do you prefer going to an event with 1,000 plus people, 500 people, 200, or a smaller event with maybe 50 to 100? And the majority, believe it or not, said 50 to 100. They preferred that.
Yeah, I can well believe that. But here's the problem or challenge is that when you're trying to build scale, you have to go to bigger. So you definitely need to look at the dynamics of a bigger crowd, and becomes a very different prospect. Mary used to do an event 3 times a year where she was in front of 1,000 to 1,200 people. And when you see what goes into planning that and to make it happen, and all the care that you have to take of the audience to make sure they have a great experience, it's a big, big challenge compared to having maybe 50 people in the room. So that was worth bearing in mind. But here's one thing I would like to say is that whether you're doing an in-person or you're doing a virtual event, first of all, you've got to think about, as a host, how do you monetize it? If you're a speaker at the event, if you're just participating, how do I monetize it? Even if you go to the extent you have a book and put a personal note in, or print a personal note in a book to, like, hey, attendee of conference X kind of thing, here's a way to connect with me, and put in a web link so they can schedule time with you, and then agree with the host that this is a valuable gift to the audience, and that you're going to put it on all the chairs and give it away for free. That kind of marketing tactics work really, really well. And you just need normally one client to actually pay for the copies of all the books, even if you have 50 books there. So it's very quickly pays off what you're doing. But here's the interesting thing, I think, about virtual. If you do the right thing as a host, with Mary, we had 1,800 people. I have had 80 people in the room myself when I did my summit, okay? 1,800 to 80 people. I've also done events with 10 people in the room. The connection you feel can be the same for 1,800 people, for 80 or for 10. Because what you have to do is you have to think about the fact that I am speaking to one person. I'm speaking to the person right in front of me. And you can focus on that one person. And guess what? In the virtual world, you will see me, and you will see that I'm focusing on you, because everybody has the same view. Now, one of the first big virtual events that I attended, and I did this as research because Mary was going to hold her big event. So there were around, or probably about 1,200, 1,500 people across a number of different Zoom rooms. And the presenter was on a stage, far removed from the cameras, and he had about 10 monitors, so all the different rooms with the monitors. And what he did was he said, okay, yes, Mary, I can see what you're saying there. And Susan, over there. And you lost that connection. And every single person in the audience was virtual. But he was always talking to the faces on the monitors. He wasn't talking to the camera. So if you know how to handle this, and you get down on that deep, intimate, one-on-one level, and I'm speaking directly to you, and then you feel that across 1,800 people, 80 people, 10 people, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the reasons I believe that a virtual event right now is here to stay. Because the connection that you're building, apart from the fact that nobody has to travel, when you finish, you don't have to go back to a hotel room. You don't have to try to mingle, especially if you're an introvert. You don't have to try to mingle and find friends, or sit there feeling like Billy No Mate, where nobody is talking to you kind of thing. And you don't have to worry about the flight home or anything like that. You can just walk into your living room and watch a little bit of TV, or get some work done, have a meeting, speak to a client, and then come back for the next session.
And you could show up in your shorts and just put a nice shirt on, and no one has a clue.
Exactly. And I think that is such a blessing, especially coming to you from Norway today.
Yeah. So I'd like to end here with your company, just so people know. So as you heard Steve today, and you want to get more involved with what he's saying, is there a pack, like, do you sign up like a subscription to be into EventRaptor, and then it's like a yearly subscription, and then your name goes into a bucket for speakers? How does EventRaptor itself work for the consumer that just got interested in you, Steve?
Okay, so first of all, we have our speaker directory, and it's free. You simply go to EventRaptor.com and you register as a speaker, and you appear in the directory, and then people can find you and invite you to speak at their event, as long as they think there's a good match between what you are doing and what they're doing. And secondly, for the EventRaptor system, if you want to host any events yourself, or if you want to do meetings and you need to have a registration page, a thank you page, send out emails, all the tech stuff that goes into all the pre-work, then basically you pay a one-time fee at the moment. We're doing a lifetime deal. You pay once, you never pay again. No subscription. Later on this year, we'll be going to a subscription package, and then you have to pay monthly, and that's over a period of time. That's going to cost you a lot more than the deal we have right now.
And so what is the deal right now, if you wouldn't mind sharing, so in case someone says, I want to sign up right now?
So the deal is, if you want just to host meetings, so you'll be able to have unlimited number of meetings. And by the way, we don't do video. We work with Zoom, or you can do this for Facebook Live, or you can do it for any other video platform. It doesn't matter what the platform is, YouTube channel, etc. At the moment, we have a meeting mode, which is available for $497. Unlimited number of meetings, up to 4 hours in length, and all of the pages are created for you automatically. The registration, the thank you, the attendee page, all of the reporting from your Zoom account will soon be available as well. So you can see who turned up to your event, how long were they there for, how interested were they.
And does that include like an editing of each speaker, so you can send that? No, so it doesn't have to do with editing or the recordings where a speaker says, hey, can you just send me the recording of my talk or anything like that?
No, not at the moment.
Not yet. Okay.
So first of all, that's meeting mode. So we don't do speaker management in that.
Okay.
If you're going to have speakers at an event, so that's more like a summit conference kind of thing. So you want that. Then we have what we call standard package and above. And the standard package at the moment is $997. And you can create a summit, you can create a giveaway. We had one client who said, I normally pay my VA team $3,000 to create a giveaway. And I've done this multiple times before. With EventRaptor, I paid a one-time fee and I didn't pay my VA team. I saved several $1,000s on my very first event using EventRaptor.
So someone that's really interested could go get online with you today for $497 if they want to do the meetings, and that's a lifetime price. It's not annually.
It's a lifetime price. It's not annually. It's just a one-off payment.
Okay, so I'm going to take you another step. Do you have anything of, and again, it could be a little higher then, do you have a payment plan? So someone who really wants to get involved but says, oh, I just don't have 500 today, but I want to get involved. Do you have anything where they can make maybe 3 payments or anything like that?
Yes. So at the moment, it's not showing up on the website, but basically just contact me and we'll work out the payment plan. For the higher plans, it's already on the website.
Okay.
So you just select the checkout.
Okay. Because there's people that are just starting off, and 500, and especially with the crazy inflation of what's going on in the country right now. So I want to show the audience your bio here. And again, Steve's website is EventRaptor.com, and it's on here, so you'll be able to see this on the YouTube channel and all of the places that we streamed this, so you could reach out to him today. So this has been amazing. I've learned so much, Steve, from you, and I really, really believe that the audience, especially everyone out there, if you have meetings, if you have summits, if you have anything that you want to do, this is an amazing software package that will really be seamless for you to produce your events. So thanks so much. Anything in closing you need to say before we sign off, Steve?
All I will say is that I truly believe if you want to sell your services, if you want to monetize what you're doing, you need to not just speak on stages, you need to own your stage. You need to have your own stage that you're speaking from. That's how all the bigger coaches have grown, by creating their own stages and bringing people to you. And that's what I want for all of you, to create your own stage.
Thank you so much. In closing, I just wanted to mention to the audience here on the Connection Show that we will be doing a live retreat here in Branson, Missouri next weekend, February 24th to the 27th. And the reason we decided to do it here in Branson is because each year in Branson at the Mansion, they have the Pure Joy Christian Women's Conference that bring in about 2,000 women for praise and worship and connection. So what better than to come in a couple of days early and to be able to join together in community with hope, health, and healing moving from victim to victory, and connect that in joy. And then we'll all go to the Pure Joy Conference together on Saturday nights. So we still have space available. Just go to braveheartworkshops.com and register today. We do have a local price, so if you live locally, you can still come to the retreat and go home to your home at night and then come during the day to the retreat. Or if you need lodging, we have the beauty of the Ozark Mountains, Table Rock Lake, and it's just an amazing place to get away with fresh air and sunshine and connection and s'mores. And it's a big pajama party. So come and join us in Branson. Thanks again, Steve, for all you do to help mankind. We really appreciated having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here on the Connection Show.
Thank you. Bless you, everyone.